After I hosted a fundraiser for cancer research, my neighbor spread lies that I was stealing donations. Sponsors pulled out. My reputation got torched. But then I caught her editing my flyers at a print shop. So I reported her for fraud with proof. I was standing in line at the local grocery store when I heard my name, again. "You know, she took half that money for herself, right?" The woman behind me whispered. Her neighbor said she bought a new phone right after the fundraiser. I froze. My phone wasn't even new. It was 2 years old and cracked. Still, the damage was done. I could feel the eyes on me, the polite nods that used to come with smiles now replaced by that fake, distant politeness people reserve for liars and thieves. It all started after the fundraiser I organized for cancer research. It wasn't huge, just a community event in our small Michigan town, but I poured months of planning, sleepless nights, and every ounce of myself into it. My late mom had died from breast cancer, and this was my way of honoring her. We raised nearly $12,000. I cried when I counted it. But a week later, people started backing out of promises. The local paper that said they'd feature our story suddenly ghosted me. The youth group that wanted to partner next year backed out. Then came the whispers. Apparently, my next-door neighbor, Denise, was telling everyone that I skimmed donations. "Charity begins at home," she told a reporter when asked for comment, like some smug, self-righteous joke. Denise wasn't just any neighbor. She was the HOA president, the self-appointed moral authority of our cul-de-sac. She smiled when she spread poison, always with that tone of concern. And somehow, she made people believe her. Within 2 weeks, I was being side-eyed at the post office. A local blog posted an article calling me a questionable organizer. My fundraiser's Facebook page flooded with comments asking for transparency. It got so bad I stopped going out except for work. Then one morning, I decided to confront her. I marched across the street, heart pounding, and found her outside trimming her stupid manicured hedges. "Denise, why are you telling people I stole from the fundraiser?" I asked. She didn't even flinch. She just smiled slow, cat-like, and said, "If you didn't have something to hide, you wouldn't be so defensive." That's when she dropped that line. "Charity begins at home," and walked away. For days, I stewed. I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining her face when she said it, like she enjoyed watching me drown. Then one afternoon, I stopped by the local print shop, the one on Main Street, to reprint flyers for a follow-up thank you event. While waiting at the counter, I noticed something on the printer screen. My design, same pink ribbon logo, but the text, "Donations handled directly by organizer. No receipts given." It wasn't mine. And standing there in the corner of the shop, I saw her, Denise, wearing her oversized sunglasses, instructing the clerk to make just a few more copies. I walked up behind her and said, "You might want to spell check before you ruin someone's life." She turned pale, then red. The clerk froze. She tried to mutter something about just helping clarify the fundraiser, but her hands were shaking. That was the moment I realized this wasn't gossip. This was sabotage, and I wasn't going to let it slide. What she didn't know was that I'd already started collecting proof. Denise moved in 2 years ago, right after her husband's mysterious job transfer. I didn't think much of it then. Our street in Ann Arbor is quiet, mostly middle-aged couples, retirees, and a few young families like mine. She seemed normal enough at first, baked muffins for everyone, waved at passing cars, even brought over a bottle of wine when I hosted a block party. But from day one, she made everything about competition. When I planted flowers, she planted more. When I hosted a Halloween potluck, she threw a classier one the next weekend. When I started volunteering for the local cancer awareness walk, she joined the committee and tried to take over. I brushed it off because I had bigger things to focus on. My mom had passed just 6 months earlier after a brutal fight with breast cancer. Watching her fade away was the hardest thing I'd ever endured. When she died, I promised myself I'd do something meaningful, something that would actually help people like her. That's how the fundraiser idea started. I wanted to raise money for a research foundation that helped low-income patients cover treatment costs. I called it Ribbons of Hope. I reached out to local businesses, printed flyers, and set up a website. I even hosted meetings at my house. Denise attended the first 2. She volunteered to help with logistics, but spent most of the time criticizing the budget, the color scheme, the venue. "You're new to this sort of thing," she said once, smiling that syrupy fake smile. You might want to let someone more experienced handle the donations part. It felt patronizing, but I ignored it. I wasn't doing this for her approval. The event itself was incredible. Dozens of people showed up, families who'd lost loved ones, cancer survivors, local businesses donating prizes for raffles. We raised nearly $12,000 in one night. Everyone hugged me, thanked me, told me how proud Mom would have been. I went home that night sobbing with relief. But a few days later, Denise started asking questions. "How exactly are you transferring the money?" she asked one morning while watering her lawn. "Do you have documentation? I heard charities have to file reports, you know." At first, I thought she was just nosy. Then she began showing up at meetings. I wasn't invited to town board sessions, PTA discussions, asking publicly if anyone had verified my use of funds. Within a week, she had people doubting me. A business owner called asking if the raffle money actually went to the charity. Someone even emailed me asking for proof of donation transfer. I panicked. I started saving screenshots, bank confirmations, messages from donors, anything that showed transparency. I kept a folder labeled just in case. What I didn't realize was that Denise wasn't just talking. She was planting seeds. Rumors turned into facts because people wanted something to gossip about. The night before I caught her at the print shop, I'd found an anonymous email in my inbox. The subject line said, "Thought you should see this." Attached was a photo, one of my flyers but altered. It said I personally handled all donations in cash and listed a Venmo handle that wasn't mine. That's when I knew this wasn't just pettiness. This was deliberate. Someone was forging my name, my event, and my reputation. And every breadcrumb led back to Denise. What she didn't expect was that I'd soon find out why she was doing it. And once I did, the game changed. After catching Denise at the print shop, I went straight home and started piecing everything together. I printed out screenshots, texts, donation receipts, everything I had. The clerk from the shop even slipped me a copy of her fake flyer when she wasn't looking. It had her email in the print order. I didn't even need a smoking gun anymore. I had the entire flamethrower. But I didn't go to the police right away. I wanted to see how far she'd go. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls and 2 texts from friends. "You might want to check Facebook," one said. My stomach dropped. Denise had made a post in the Ann Arbor Community Watch Group. It said, "Just wanted to warn neighbors about some potential mismanagement with the recent Ribbons of Hope event. Please be careful where you send your donations. Charity begins at home, after all." Growing heart and the comments, God, the comments. People speculating about my lavish spending, accusing me of being another scammer hiding behind a sob story. Someone even found my workplace LinkedIn and tagged it, saying, "Maybe her employer should know." I sat on my couch, shaking, scrolling, feeling like the ground had vanished beneath me. I tried reporting the post, but it was too late. It had hundreds of comments within hours. I called Facebook support, emailed the admin of the group, but no one moved fast enough. By that evening, my boss called. HR wanted a meeting just to clarify a few things. That night, I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just about me, it was about Mom, about everything that fundraiser meant. I felt like Denise had dragged my mother's memory through the mud just to watch me fall apart. So I started fighting back. Quietly. I reached out to every donor personally, sending proof of where the money had gone, transaction receipts, screenshots, even confirmation emails from the foundation itself. Most of them were understanding, some even apologized, but the damage was spreading faster than I could fix it. Local blogs had picked up the Facebook post. One headline read, "Organizer accused of mishandling cancer donations." And right in the middle of the article quoted was Denise. "I just want transparency," she said. "If she has nothing to hide, she should be happy to show her records." That same night, I saw her at the end of her driveway, laughing with another neighbor. She waved at me like nothing had happened. Something in me snapped. I spent the next few days quietly gathering every shred of evidence I could find. I even reached out to the charity foundation to confirm they received the full $12,000, and they emailed me an official letter verifying it. Gold, but I wasn't satisfied with clearing my name. Not anymore. I wanted people to see her for what she was. That's when I decided to dig into her. And what I found made my blood run cold. Her name didn't check out, at least not fully. Denise Harper wasn't her real legal name, and her husband, he wasn't transferred, he was fired from a nonprofit. For embezzlement. That's when everything started making sense, her obsession with handling donations, her paranoia about transparency, her need to deflect attention. I realized she wasn't just trying to ruin me. She was trying to bury her own past. And now that I had her secret, I knew exactly how to destroy her. The night I uncovered her real name, I sat there staring at my laptop screen, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Her real name wasn't Denise Harper. It was Denise R. Hamilton. A quick background check pulled up an old article from a Detroit paper dated 5 years ago. Local nonprofit treasurer arrested for fraud, over $50,000 missing. There was her photo. Same smirk, same dead eyes. Same woman now pretending to be my neighbor, running our HOA and trying to destroy my reputation. I didn't sleep that night. I dug deeper. Turns out she'd taken a plea deal. Avoided jail time by paying restitution and promising to never again participate in charity management. Guess that went out the window when she moved here and reinvented herself as a saintly suburban do-gooder. I printed everything, articles, court records, even a copy of the restitution agreement, and tucked it all into a manila folder. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet, but I knew I wasn't rushing this. A few days later, Denise stopped by my house. No warning, she just knocked like we were friends. I almost didn't open the door, but I needed to see her face. She smiled. I just wanted to make sure there's no hard feelings. You know how small towns are rumors spread fast? I stared at her. You mean the ones you started? Her smile twitched. You're too sensitive, sweetheart. It's not my fault people have questions. That's when I realized something I hadn't before. She wasn't afraid. She enjoyed this. The chaos, the power, the way people's trust crumbled. It gave her life. She leaned against my doorframe, looking me up and down. You really should just let this go. These things blow over if you stop making noise. I wanted to slap that smugness right off her face, but instead I said calmly, You're right, it will blow over soon. And as soon as she walked away, I called a friend of mine, Eli, a local journalist who owed me a favor. I didn't tell him everything at first. I just said, Someone's spreading lies about a fundraiser. I have proof it's sabotage. You want an exclusive? He bit immediately. Over the next few days, I worked with him quietly. He verified the documents I had on Denise, her court record, her previous name, her old nonprofit. He even found her mugshot buried in an old archive. But then, just when we were ready to publish, something happened that made everything 10 times worse. The foundation I donated the fundraiser money to sent me a cease and desist letter. It said, We have received multiple complaints regarding potential misrepresentation of our organization's name in your fundraiser materials. Until this matter is resolved, please refrain from associating your event with our foundation. My hands went numb as I read it. She'd done it. Denise had gone straight to them, probably forwarding those fake flyers as proof. Overnight, she'd managed to make even the charity question me. That was her second attack. And this time, it worked. My event page got flagged, my sponsors pulled out, and the same community that once praised me now treated me like I had a criminal record. I almost gave up. I almost deleted everything and disappeared from social media. Until Eli called me the next morning and said, You need to see this. He sent me a link. A private post Denise had made in the HOA Facebook group. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It was a confession. She'd written, People should be more careful who they trust. I know what it's like to be scammed by someone pretending to raise money. I lost everything once because of someone like her. I won't let it happen again. She was rewriting history, turning her past crimes into a sob story, and she was using me as her prop. I remember whispering out loud to myself, Okay, Denise, you want war. You've got it. And that's when I started planning her downfall. I didn't want to be the angry neighbor yelling into the void. I wanted this done like surgery, precise, quick, and impossible to ignore. For the first time since Mom died, I felt that cold, focused energy she'd shown in the chemo ward when everything else in the world was falling apart. I made a list, short, brutal, prioritized, and then I executed it. First, lock down the paper trail. I organized every receipt, every bank transfer, every email from donors, and the official confirmation from the foundation proving they'd received the $12,000. I printed 2 copies of everything and put one set in a safe deposit box and one in my glove compartment. I told myself, if you lose this fight, it won't be because your paperwork was sloppy. Second, evidence of sabotage. The print shop clerk gave me a receipt with Denise's email and the timestamp of the fake flyers. I called the shop back, asked for CCTV footage for that day, and begged, because that's what you do when you're trying not to break down, until the owner agreed to hand it over if the police requested it. I didn't have the police on my side yet. I made a note, get the police on my side. Third, the narrative, rumors spread because they were repeated. I needed repetition too, but on my terms. I reached out to Eli, my journalist friend, and told him everything, but I didn't give him the whole folder. I gave him the thread that showed Denise's print order, her HOA post, and the charity's confirmation. I asked him to sit on it while I set the trap. He agreed, but only if I promised not to go public before he could verify a few legal points. I promised. Fourth, legal backup. I emailed a lawyer's office I'd used years before for a domestic dispute, small town networks help. I didn't file anything yet. I wanted counsel. The lawyer advised me to preserve all communications, report the forgery to the police, and, important, avoid anything that could be construed as harassment. Good advice, boring and good. Fifth, the bait. I created a fake donor account, nothing illegal, just a new email and a petty $10 PayPal donation to the fundraiser page. It was to be a marker. If Denise forwarded that forged flyer to anyone, or used her "I'm protecting the community" spiel, I'd have proof she distributed altered materials while pretending to be concerned. I also emailed the foundation with a carefully worded letter. We've been alerted to fraudulent materials using your name. Can you confirm whether my event is authorized? Their reply came within 24 hours. No, we did not authorize those flyers. Gold. Sixth, the public setting. I booked a slot to speak at the next HOA meeting. It felt strange to weaponize the very stage she used to parade as morality. But I didn't plan to accuse her at first. I planned to lay out the facts, timeline, receipts, the foundation's denial, the print shop receipt, and then ask for a formal investigation. A reasonable ask in any small town. I told myself, reasonable people can't ignore documents. Seventh, psychological. I wanted her to be rattled before the meeting. Not violent, not illegal, just exposed. I started leaving small, anonymous notes on her car. Nothing threatening, just facts. Check Main Street print, sept. 24:10:03 a.m. I wanted her to sweat, to know someone was digging. I wanted her to feel the same dread she sold to the town. I didn't plan to humiliate her in the street or set her up with traps that could get me arrested. I planned to use the system she had depended on: records, witnesses, and public procedure. If I did it right, her own history and her own fingerprints would be the instruments of her unmaking. And then, 3 days before the HOA meeting, my phone buzzed with a private message from Denise. It was short and weirdly candid. We should talk. I want to clear the air. Coffee. Her message should have felt like an opening. Instead, it felt like a door with hinges I'd greased. I felt that old sick twist in my stomach, the one that told me she might actually confess, or worse, that she had a countermove ready. So I did what I always do when my pulse spikes. I prepared. I set up my recorder. I scheduled the meeting in a cafe with a barista who owed me a favor. I told Eli the time and place and asked him to come 5 minutes early and sit where he could record without being obvious. When I walked into that cafe, Denise was already there, hands folded like a saint waiting for absolution. She smiled and said she wanted to clear everything up. Her voice was smooth, but her eyes flicked to my recorder like a moth to a lamp. I hit record. What she said next was supposed to be the end of her, but it turned into something I never saw coming. Denise didn't waste time. As soon as I sat down, she leaned in, lowering her voice like we were old friends sharing secrets. I think we both know this has gotten out of hand, she said. The flyers, the posts, it's all been a misunderstanding. I let her talk. She rambled about community confusion and how she only wanted to protect the neighborhood from scams. But underneath that fake sweetness, she was calculating every word. Then she slid a small white envelope across the table. This should make it go away. I stared at it, heart thudding. Inside were 5 $100 bills. Are you trying to bribe me? I asked quietly. Let's not use ugly words. she said with a tight smile. Think of it as goodwill. You delete your posts, stop asking questions, and I'll tell people it was all a big mix-up. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I thought she was going to confess or at least beg for forgiveness. But no, she was buying silence. I looked her dead in the eye and said, I'm recording this, Denise. Her face didn't even flinch. In fact, she smiled. I know. That's when my stomach dropped. She wasn't there to make peace, she was setting me up. Because within minutes my phone buzzed. Texts, notifications, pings from Facebook Messenger. People were tagging me in posts, screenshots. Someone had posted a recording of me. The audio was chopped, edited, rearranged. It made it sound like I was demanding money to stay quiet about the fundraiser. The caption read, "So much for charity. Guess money talks louder than hope." And it was posted from an anonymous account, but the IP trace, Eli would later confirm, was from our neighborhood's Wi-Fi network. That's when it hit me. Denise had recorded our conversation too. She'd baited me, bribed me, then leaked an edited version of the tape to make me look like a blackmailer. It was genius in the most disgusting way. I stood up, my hands shaking. You set this up. She just sipped her coffee. You really should have taken the deal, she said softly. You'll never win against someone who knows what you'll do before you do it. I walked out before I did something I'd regret. Outside, I called Eli in a panic, explaining everything. He didn't say much at first, just told me to calm down and send him the full recording from my side. Then he said, "Trust me, this might have just backfired on her." For the next few hours, I stayed home with my blinds drawn. The community group exploded with comments again. Someone tagged my workplace again. People called me pathetic, fraud, attention-seeking. It was worse than before. But late that night, Eli called back and his voice sounded different, steady, confident. I listened to both versions, he said. She messed up. What do you mean? She spliced the audio wrong. You can hear a background shift mid-sentence. There's cafe chatter, then silence, then chatter again. But your side has continuous noise. That's proof of editing. And I have timestamps from both recordings to match it. He paused. We're going public tomorrow. That was the first time in weeks I felt something like relief. But then, something even bigger happened. The next morning, before Eli could post the story, someone else beat him to it. The Ann Arbor Herald, the city's main paper, ran a front-page article. Former nonprofit treasurer implicated in forgery defamation scheme. The article named Denise R. Hamilton, using her real name. It included her mugshot, her prior fraud case, and most importantly, how she'd been caught altering fundraiser materials and framing a local resident. I hadn't leaked that. Neither had Eli. The source listed at the bottom was anonymous. But I knew the writing style, the phrasing, the timing. It was someone who'd been closer to her than anyone. Because 2 hours later, I got a message from an unknown number that simply said, "She did the same thing to me once. Glad someone finally stopped her." Attached was a photo of a man, her husband, or rather, ex-husband. And that's when the truth about why she'd done all of this started to unravel. When I saw that message from her ex-husband, I didn't respond right away. I just stared at the photo, him standing in front of some motel, eyes hollow but determined, and that single line he'd sent. "She did the same thing to me once." I finally replied. "What did she do?" he called. His voice was gravelly, bitter, but calm in that way people sound after they've been hollowed out by someone toxic. "Her name's not even Denise," he said. "It's Rachel. She changes it every few years. New town, new name, new story. She finds someone kind-hearted, someone who wants to help others, and she uses them." My chest went cold. He explained how they'd met. She joined the nonprofit where he worked as a volunteer accountant. She came off as the perfect partner, organized, charming, committed to good causes. But little by little, she started controlling the money flow, convincing people to route donations through her for processing. By the time anyone noticed, $50,000 was gone, and so was she. When investigators got close, she flipped the story, blamed her husband, and walked away nearly clean. He lost his job, his reputation, everything. She only had to pay partial restitution and move. "So that's her pattern," I said slowly. "She picks people who actually care." "Exactly," he said. "And when she feels them slipping out of her control, she ruins them first. That's her insurance policy, make them radioactive so no one believes them when the truth comes out." It all clicked at once. The way she'd volunteered to handle donations. her obsessive questions. The rumors, the faked flyers, the edited audio. She wasn't just being malicious, she was recreating her cover story. If she could ruin me first, then any future fraud she committed would look like someone else's fault. My fault. She told me once, her ex-husband added, his voice dropping, that the only real power people have is their reputation. You kill that, you own them. She meant it. I sat in silence after we hung up. That line wouldn't stop echoing. You kill that, you own them. It made everything make sense. The rumors, the smirk, the way she'd looked at me like she was already writing my obituary. She wasn't trying to humiliate me, she was trying to erase me. She'd seen me organizing that fundraiser, watched people admire me for it, and in her twisted, empty world, admiration was currency. And she wanted it all to herself. The sickest part? She didn't even need the money. Her husband said she still had a trust fund from her parents. It was never about finances, it was about control. About rewriting her failures by making someone else's kindness look corrupt. She once told him, during a fight, good people are easy to destroy. All you have to do is make them defend themselves. And she was right. I'd spent weeks trying to prove I wasn't a thief instead of forcing her to prove she wasn't a liar. That's when something in me hardened. The grief, the humiliation, the sleepless nights, they all burned into a single, cold purpose. I wasn't going to let her move again, not this time. I was going to make sure her real name, her real crimes, and her real face followed her everywhere she went. Because if she believed reputation was power, then I was about to take hers and grind it into dust. I remember standing in the HOA meeting room with my folder like armor. The same people who'd applauded my fundraiser months earlier were there, a ring of faces I'd once trusted. I laid everything out. The foundation's denial email, the bank transfers, the print shop receipt with her email, the manila folder with court records showing her previous identity. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I let the papers do the shouting. Eli live-streamed the meeting for the small crowd that couldn't fit inside. I played the unedited audio from the cafe, the whole thing, beginning to end, and watched as the edited version that had ruined me for weeks unspooled as the obvious fraud it was. People who'd shared the fake post with righteous fury now sat silent, flipping their phones in their hands like children caught passing notes. Two things happened almost at once. First, the print shop clerk, who'd been terrified before, finally turned on Denise in front of everyone. He produced the CCTV that showed her at the counter ordering the altered flyers, her face clear and unsmiling. Second, a man in the back, the one who'd texted me the photo of her ex, stood up and told his story. The same story I'd later learn had been baited out of Denise's ex-husband by Eli's quiet prodding. He laid out how she'd done the same playbook to him years ago. The room inhaled. I walked out of that meeting with the HOA unanimously demanding an immediate investigation and a formal vote to remove her from her position. I walked to the police station with the same folder. This time they didn't send me away. The evidence was too thick. Forgery, impersonation, wire activity pointing to the neighborhood Wi-Fi. They took a report, assigned an investigator, and within a week subpoenas were served. Denise, Rachel, really was brought in for questioning. She tried the denial routine, the crocodile act of shock and misremembering, but the paperwork didn't care for theatrics. Publicly, it was brutal for her. Eli's piece dropped with the court records and the full cafe recording embedded. The Herald ran a follow-up naming her real aliases. Donors who'd backed away posted apologies and screenshots of the foundation's confirmation. The foundation issued a public statement clearing my event and announcing they'd received the funds. My boss at work called to say HR had closed the file and offered a quiet apology. People brought casseroles to my doorstep like some absurd, late-blooming atonement. Legally, the wheels turned slower, but they turned. The county prosecutor charged her with felony forgery and multiple counts of misdemeanor defamation tied to the forged flyers and the edited audio. Bail was set. Restitution from her old case resurfaced as leverage. I don't pretend the justice system moved like lightning. It didn't. But for the first time since this started, I watched someone else have to defend the same kinds of lies she'd thrown at me. The best part, the truly private, delicious part, was the look on her face at the arraignment when her attorney leaned over and quietly told her that the print shop's CCTV, the bank records, the taped conversation, and the ex-husband's affidavit made a plea bargain unlikely. She had built her life on other people's trust and then turned it into a weapon. Watching that life unravel was not a celebration but a catharsis. The grief of the past months didn't disappear, but it shifted shape. It hardened into something clean, proof that truth, when pressed, is heavier than a rumor. I still miss Mom. That ache is permanent, but I don't wake up with the knot of dread that took over my chest for weeks. People say revenge isn't closure. Maybe they're right, but seeing her answer for what she did, watching her lose the stage she'd made a career out of, it felt like closing a wound that would otherwise have scarred me for life. When it was over, a neighbor handed me a mug that said, in faded letters, "Charity begins at home." I kept it. I put it on my kitchen shelf where I can see it every morning, and I laugh a little at how literal life can get. Then I turn it over, read the smudge of handwriting on the bottom, someone's name, a date, and think, some people want control so badly they forget how fragile it is. If there's a last line to all this, it's simple and a little mean. She tried to burn my name to ash, but she forgot that ashes can still fertilize new things.